Hi, I'm Brett Hickey, founder and CEO of Starmount Capital. Excited to be here with Maury Bradsher today to give views from the top with Starmount Capital insights. Maury, thank you for being with us today.
It's good to be with you, Brett.
So let's talk about what is an independent sponsor, how you partner with founders of businesses to help them build and create more value for them, all their employees and shareholders, as well as investors. And some of the differences when you think about capital partners, what are some of the differences you think about? So first off, let's frame what is an independent sponsor, which is somebody who, similar to Maury, has decades of investment and operational experience, has a lot of local relationships, and has deep industry insights that is able to find local business owners to partner with and help grow those businesses. But unlike a traditional private equity fund, doesn't have a committed pool of capital that he needs to be making investments with, and therefore looks for partners. So that's an independent sponsor for framing for people. So Maury, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the advantages you have and you bring to the table in this highly fragmented ecosystem in an aging demographic where there are a lot of great businesses that have gotten their business to one level, and how you're able to find them, take them to the next level. Let's talk a bit about that and unpack it, and then we'll get into thinking about capital partners that do and don't fit an independent sponsor model as well.
Sure thing, sure. So I think the fragmentation is important, right? Because there are a lot of folks, if you think about the independent sponsor umbrella, there are a lot of people that kind of fall into that area, different levels, et cetera. So I also think it's important, just quickly background, because it sets a context for what I've been able to do in this space. So I built and scaled and exited, a business. And we've had a couple of exits since then. And what that's done is that's given us the ability to be able to sit in a seat and relate a little bit different to a founder, to an owner, and to kind of assuage any concerns that they may have about our ability to be able to help them get to the next level. That's one.
Because you've been there and you've done that.
Correct. It's almost like, the old saying, it's like, I've seen this movie before.
Yep.
And in some cases, like I haven't actually seen it. I actually wrote the script and starred in it, right? So you have a couple of different things there. The other piece that's also important is we have very specific sector expertise. Working in the federal government, it's a wide aperture, but it's very nuanced. It can be a very Byzantine process, understanding the government. It has its own accounting system. There are a lot of different moving parts to the federal government. And so understanding that cadence of business is important as well, because it gives us another layer of relatability, right? And so, but what it also does is it gives you the ability to be a good partner from a capital standpoint, because you can help your capital partner advise in terms of what type of capital makes sense in this particular asset. The other aspect of it is, when done right, you develop your own track record, a strong track record that allows you to be able to get more deal flow. And then again, as you go deeper into some of these different areas, what happens is, as you develop your track record and credibility, it opens the aperture for other deals, even outside of the areas that we've been successful.
That's great. That's very helpful. I think a lot of people think about investing and they don't realize how important trust is. And given how fragmented and big the market is, these business owners that you build rapport with, sometimes over years, is such a critical part for them for the first time in their lives, often partnering with somebody. Right? They may have founded the business 30 years ago, or their parents founded it, and it's been in the family for decades. Now, for the first time ever, they're going to have a partner.
Right.
So somebody rushing in and saying, hey, let's do a deal, is often not going to resonate. But somebody that's built rapport, perhaps over years with them, that knows the sector and so forth, I think that's really important as we think about unlocking a lot of the generational opportunity that exists right now with the aging demographic that is all upon us. So second, let's talk now about working with these businesses, helping create business plans to strategically grow them. What are some of the differences? You've met with a lot of different capital partners, thinking about a true understanding, strategic capital partner versus a traditional, more passive partner. How do you think of some of the differences, and why do you choose to work with a more strategic type of capital partner versus a more passive partner?
Yeah, it's such a great question, because what you framed, a lot of business owners, very much the same way. When you put everything you have into a business and you're building it, who you work with and who you partner with matters. Again,
said.
there's the capital, and then there's what the benefits that the capital brings, and the partnerships and the opportunity, and being what we think about from a strategic standpoint. We think about, again, you think about Star Mountain just being a center of distribution, right? What Star Mountain has done, if you don't mind me using Star Mountain as an example, obviously, is just, having senior advisors and having people across different strata gives you a network effect. It gives you the ability to tap different aspects of the platform. It's not just about the capital, right? And so, and that's huge for
Because in fact, at the end of the day, capital is a commodity, isn't it?
That's right. That's exactly right. And that relationship is important because, again, it develops a trust when you can actually bring people in and you can help them get indoors that they may not have been able to get in otherwise. Or you can give them advice from a perspective that may not have been able to get otherwise, as opposed to just having capital. So, and I think, there's a lot in the media, if you're thinking about a small business owner or a founder, there's a lot that they see in the capital markets that kind of shapes their view on what bringing institutional capital is going to be, what that will look like for their business. The other thing with that too is being an independent sponsor who has grown and exited businesses. What you're able to do with the founder is prepare them and help them think about what it means now to have tighter governance, to have institutional capital, and how to think commercially about building an enterprise, and how to work with an aligned partner.
I think that's helpful. And as we all think about our journey in life, that's very special and unique, and technically is to each one of us.
Right.
But the reality is, to your point of, I've seen that movie, a lot of the things that we all go through in building businesses and what you had to do as a founder versus what you have to do to take to the next level,
right,
often are pretty similar.
Absolutely.
And you can start to get into some pattern recognition and help people avoid learning things the hard way, avoid those risks, avoid those challenges, and do things in an optimized way. I think there's so much benefit to that at the end of the day, to just experience.
You're mentoring also in so many ways. It's like, here are the things and stuff that I've done and here are the gotchas that I've had that I want to help you avoid. So
what are some? Why don't we end, Maury, with 2 tips? Let's take one tip for independent sponsors out there. A lot of our audience are CEOs and business owners themselves, and others are investors. So let's give one piece of advice for a CEO that is looking to partner with an independent sponsor or any type of capital partner ultimately. What are 1 or 2 things that you think are really critical that you'd give as advice to CEOs looking to partner with somebody like yourself?
Yeah, I'll go back to the domain expertise. When you have sector expertise, it's almost like having a Sherpa. It really is. It's very different when you can sit with someone who is, again, been in your seat, and who you can talk to, and who knows the nuances of your business. And in a lot of ways, that extends itself to the ability to be able to add value, like intrinsic value to your enterprise that you wouldn't. That's one. The other piece is that it's a relationship. Like, if you're thinking about from a business owner's perspective, understanding, yes, there's capital, but there are real people behind the capital as well, and developing that relationship, understanding who folks are. As you go to lunches, as you go to dinners, as you get to know people, they become part of a community. You should be becoming part of a family. As you let people in, they get to know you, you get to know them. And again, it just it's a natural process, right? It's everything is not hard and fast. It's amazing. So much kind of reverts back to the relationship, right? Everything, the capital is a medium. Like you said, it's a commodity, but the relationship is really, really important. One of the things that's important to me, Bruce, Ryan, a lot of folks have met my family, right? So that piece is important to me. Bruce has been in my home, right? So, these things are important as you develop a relationship and people get to know who you are. Yeah,
well said. What we often refer to as the Star Mountain family, and I think that's a big part of it, whether it's businesses like Star Mountain that are 100% employee owned, or when you think about, your business as an independent sponsor, you're all in, working with founders that they're all in, and they really care about their families, and it's really extensions of families, defined in different ways. I think that matters a lot. And I think people often forget that, especially here in New York City, where in the larger market, things are much more transactional. Here, it's passion and pride, and that matters so much.
100%.
The second thing, then, let's talk from the perspective, a lot of our audience are investors. What advice would you give an investor when they're thinking about whether they have the skills and the way of operating to work well with an independent sponsor. If you think about passive type of investors that are just like, hey, Maury, I need information, give me more information, and it is really a drain and a negative and a challenge to the business, instead of saying, hey, we want to be a partner, we want to grow, we want to understand your partners so we can actually try to help. Because there's different types of capital and different type of partners for situations. From the perspective of an investor, what would you say an investor wants to think about in order to effectively partner with an independent sponsor like yourself?
Right. So understanding it from an investor standpoint, one, you have a business to run, right? A lot of people don't realize, again, look, private equity is a business just like anything else, right? So you have that understanding that when you're working with capital sponsors, the capital sponsor understands that you have a business to run. You're getting money from LPs, and the goal is not to lose money. The goal is to take the money, grow it, and get it back to LPs. So I think that understanding in the outset is important. Behind that is, from an investor's perspective, the value that the independent sponsor brings to the business. As a real life example, when we step into a business, we think about enterprise resource planning. How do you actually augment and use technology to make a business more profitable? And that's a win for everyone. That's a win for the sponsor, obviously, that's a win for the company, and it's a win for the capital provider. So, having that kind of framework is really important. So again, from an investor standpoint, the value add that the sponsor brings from a returns perspective, and an understanding of the business, and understanding of the capital and stuff that's there. And then the other piece, going back to just the relationship. I think kind of getting to know sponsors and understanding, making sure that you understand the value that they add relative to the capital that you're trying to deploy.
One thing I'd observed to that point, you mentioned the word relationship many times. I think some people forget that. So you reference people like Bruce Etroff, Ryan McGovern, others on the Star Mountain team who are all partners in the firm, have meaningful personal capital invested, and are also senior investment professionals that can be supportive and understanding. I think the mistake a lot of firms make, which works fine in the larger market, right, where you raise capital, you might have a senior person working with you to do a deal, but then you hardly ever speak to them. And you have some, younger person working with you that's just asking for information, which isn't really a relationship. It isn't a partnership. And in bigger deals, more transactional, that's completely fine because a large private equity firm, for example, doesn't care about that value add as much. That's what they're doing. Whereas in this end of the market, you want capital providers that are really going to have senior leadership, partnership that cares about things like you do, just like the founders do. So I think that's a good piece of advice for investors to think about. Am I built to work effectively in a very active management versus after making an investment becoming more of a passive investor, which just probably won't jive as well with the DNA of the independent sponsor founder world.
That's right. Yeah, and again, to your point about Bruce and and Ryan, these are guys that I talk with at least monthly, right, on different things. So the businesses and stuff that we're in, how can we do things a little bit better? Having conversations about just the effect of the companies and stuff that we're invested in together collectively. So you're exactly right. Again, putting on the owner's hat now, right? Putting that back on, thinking about running a commercial enterprise. That's really, really important. And having the people in the organization on an active basis, not taking over the business, but being hand in hand with you to make sure that that we're safeguarding everything.
On safeguarding, I think a good wrap-up point here, Maury, is we all think about investing, as you say, it's our fiduciary responsibility, it's our financial objectives, and how we're all economically aligned to work together. But also we think about the societal impact.
Correct.
Right. When we're actively working with businesses, you're not over-levering companies.
That's right.
That means you're protecting jobs, protecting their families. I've always hated as a founder when people say, oh, it's just business. I'm like, that just business doesn't just affect their kids they need to feed.
That's right.
Mortgage payments they need to make, and help me understand how that's just business. It's real life.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Right. And so I think that one of the things, like yourself and very much in alignment with Star Mountain, is how we really think about the societal impacts of what we're doing, how we're working. And if there are challenges, it's not here to pull the carpet out from people. It's actively working through challenges and through opportunities, because every business plan looks like a hockey stick, but the reality is it's more of an S-shaped curve, and you want to minimize the downside, capitalize on those opportunities. So I think that that's something that I know a lot of our investors care about. And I think as we head into more uncertain economic territory, my guess is you're going to see a lot more companies that face challenges and add too much leverage, and ultimately the impact that'll have to real families versus prudently, patiently, actively working with businesses to help grow them and the livelihoods of all their employees, I think has a big impact. So thank you for your partnership and service from that perspective.
Great to be with you.
Great work.
Thank you,
Thanks,
buddy.
buddy.
Absolutely.